Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic? Let's do it. Those who work around death or with burials, what's your best ghost story? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I used to be a security guard at a hospital. One night while doing my rounds, I went into the surgery wing and was walking down a hallway when I saw a doctor looking at the whiteboard where all the scheduled surgeries were written down. I said, "Hello, doctor," and kept going. The doctor didn't say anything back. She just kept studying the whiteboard. When I got back to the security office, I was telling one of the guys that's been there for years about how I greeted this doctor, and he didn't say anything back. I asked if that was the asshole they told me to watch out for. I was asked where I saw him, and I said the surgery ward, and he gave me a smirk. He then explained that the surgery ward closes at 9 p.m., and that all patients are moved into the monitoring wards. There should be no one there. He then asked me if this doctor was studying the schedule board. I said yes. And he then told me I had just met Dr. Luisidi. Apparently many years ago, one of the surgeons went up to the helipad and jumped off the building. It seems like he never stopped working though. Junior doctor on the ward doing a night shift called to verify a death. Entered the private bay. It's all a bit grim. Slightly gloomy room. Patient is lying there. Old man looks peaceful. Start my checks. Stethoscope out. No signs of active respiration. No heart sounds. Rub the sternum for a response. None. Time to get closer and check the CNS for any signs of life. I lift the eyelid up. Reach for my pen torch. Balancing closer to the patient. That's when it happens. The patient lurches forward, his face now inches away from mine. I scream. Nurses rush in and ask what's happened. What was that noise? Why so pale? You look like you've seen a ghost. That's when I realize I leaned in too close and my leg brushed against the bed controls raising the bed. Nurses couldn't stop laughing as they offered to make me a cup of tea. My grandfather was extremely sick in the days leading up to his death. He'd worked with asbestos for all his working life and had an extremely debilitating condition as a result of it. He couldn't speak and he hadn't spoken for a month leading up to his death. He couldn't even communicate. On the day of his death, he looked at my mother and said, "The angel is back." My mother was stunned. She asked what he meant, and he said the angel is back and this time he wants me to come with him. My mother looked at the corner of the room where he was looking, turned back to him and said, "Dad, there's nobody there." He didn't respond. He died that night. That was 20 years ago, and my mother never spoke of it again. She told me the story when I was old enough, just like she told my brothers. But my sister never got to the age where she was old enough. She succumbed to her disease when she was 7 after battling it her entire life. And on the days leading up to her death, she kept speaking about this butterfly who would visit her. My brothers and I would sit with her and nod along. We kinda just thought she developed this imaginary friend to help her through what she was struggling with. One day, she shot up and told us, "The butterfly is back, and he wants me to follow him." I saw my mother's face drop. She'd made the decision not to tell my sister she was dying. And my sister just believed she was going through a rough patch like she often did. Not that the doctors had told my mother it was terminal, but my sister said, in the next second, "I'm going to die, aren't I?" That's what the butterfly said. He told me I'm going to die. My mother admitted to her that yes, she was going to die. She said, "Oh, okay." Then I laid down and died, with my brothers, my mom, and I cuddling her in bed. I don't know what I believe about the afterlife, but I have to think there must be one. There's some truth behind the legend of the Grim Reaper, that at some point, something comes to lead all of us away from life, because otherwise, I have no way of coming to terms with what I've experienced. Not me, but a colleague found a dead person in a dark, smoke-filled, burned-out building during a mop-up of firefighting operations. Unfortunately, sometimes you find them by stepping on them. If they're still intact, you kind of bounce off of them. If they're fried, you can often crunch them up pretty badly under your heavy boot. Well, this guy stood right on a badly burned corpse's sternum. Crunch right into the chest cavity. When he tried to pull his foot out, it got stuck on the ribs, and the body came up at him. Burned up arms flailing about. It took a few tries with what looked like a zombie stuck on his leg. He needed quite a bit of counseling, poor dude. I have several stories from when I worked as a mortuary transport technician. The job was basically transporting the deceased from where they were to where they needed to go. It turns out that dead people can have a lot of appointments. One time though, I had an experience I've never forgotten. I was dropping someone off at the science donation place. This is when you donate your body to science, and they take it from there. So I wheeled in the deceased, unlocked the freezer, and did all the stuff I had to do in there. I placed him on the board, got the lift out, and placed him on the shelf. The interesting thing about the freezer was that most everything, once it's processed, was wrapped in this blue tape type thing, and you could definitely tell what was inside. Legs, hands, feet, etc. It was kind of interesting to me at the time. Anyway, I shut the freezer, locked it back up, and started wheeling the gurney back over to the garage door. The science drop-off and processing area was a big L shape, with the freezer off to the larger long portion, and then you turn the corner and there's desks and filing cabinets and whatnot. I almost had a heart attack as I turned the corner, and there was just this guy standing there examining files in the cabinet. I looked just like you or me, dressed modernly, but out of place for what people normally wear back there. I stopped and said that he'd have to forgive me, but he almost gave me a heart attack. It didn't look like he heard me at all, or even knew I was there. I should mention, this was also at about 1 a.m., and I'd never seen anyone at that place that late. So I said, well, sorry if I startled you or anything, and went on about my finishing up stuff. I got the gurney back in the van, closed and locked the garage door from the inside, and all the while this guy is just standing there staring at an open file in front of me, not paying any attention to me. I had to use the bathroom, so I told him that's where I'd be going, and I'd be right back. Again, no response. I thought maybe he's deaf and can't hear me. So I went to the bathroom and came back to the garage, and the guy was gone, but the file cabinet was still open. I didn't know where he went, and I hadn't heard anyone walk down the hallway past the bathroom. I checked and made sure everything I was responsible for was still locked, and it was. So I just announced that I was going to be leaving and locking up to set the alarm. No response. And that's what I did. And left. I'm not sure who he was or is or what happened, but it was definitely an odd experience and one I still remember perfectly. I have a few other memories about my time at the job, if anyone else wants to hear them. Nothing like what happened above though. I was once working at a mortuary and had to go pick up a man from the medical examiner's office. When you do that, at least where I'm from, you get a receipt when they release the body to you. The receipt has all of the personal belongings that are with the deceased. When I brought the man back to the office, I opened up the body bag to make sure all the belongings were there and double-checked the receipt. When I opened up the bag, I was stunned to find that this dude looked almost exactly like me. He was my age and had similar tattoos in similar spots. I had the same long hair as I do, and I even had the same style of jewelry. It took me so off guard that I stood there in an existential crisis until the embalmer came in and was like, "Hey Spartan, how's it going? Ah, holy shit, that guy looks like you." It's the only case I've had nightmares about. I'll be the one in the body bag with the deceased man opening me up. Yeah, that's pretty creepy. I mean, if the person looked like you and had similar tattoos and jewelry, yeah, that would definitely disturb me, for sure. I used to work in a nursing home. The residents in certain rooms would complain about a man in their room at night, but hallucinations are common in the elderly, so it wasn't really noticed. One night I was mopping the dining room, which had huge windows overlooking the garden. It was around 1 a.m., so it was pitch black outside and low lighting inside. I had this horrible feeling of being watched, so I looked up, and reflected in the window was a man behind me. He had a brown suit on, in a bowler hat, and the cruelest look on his face. He grinned and his mouth was too big. This happened in seconds, and when I turned around there was obviously no one there, but I'll never forget the look of evil on his face. I paid more attention to the residents after that, and they'd all seen the same man. He just enjoyed terrorizing people. During my apprenticeship, I worked at a funeral home said to be haunted by an old funeral director assistant who had a heart attack in the building and died. All he ever did was mess with a chapel light, and if you called him out saying something like, "John, the family's coming, please don't," they would return to normal. I'm not really sure if I believe it was really haunted, but saying something always fixed the issue, so I kept doing it my entire time there. I used to be a driver for a funeral home corporation, like drive the hearse and pick up the bodies. I never had anything creepy happen, a few funny things, a few traumatic things. In general, it was a chill job. However, I did get incredibly uncomfortable one night picking up a man who died at home. He still had the defibrillator leads on his chest, and his eyes were closed, which is unusual because the eyes are always open. He just looked like he was asleep or unconscious, not rigid, pale, or anything. I just had this sinking feeling for about half an hour in traffic that he was going to suddenly gasp and wake up in the body bag. Then it hit me. That would be the coolest thing ever. I'd take him home and he'd be back with his family. So I just kind of drove slowly, turned up some music, sang along, and talked to him. When I got to the funeral home, I left him out of the cooler for about an hour while I did paperwork and played on my phone. When I got another call, I checked on him, and his limbs had started to stiffen. I was kind of bummed. I put him in the cooler and went on my next call. I used to work on an oncology ward as a nurse. Our side rooms were kept for end-of-life patients on palliative care, and one patient that we had been nursing for a good few weeks died early one morning. The last office had already been done by the night shift, and the patient had moved to the hospital morgue, so all that remained was to clear the room of personal belongings and tidy up. I sent a student nurse that I was mentoring at the time to do this while I got on the drug round. The student had known the patient fairly well and was comfortable with the job. About 10 minutes later, a colleague came to me and told me that the student had come flying out of the side room, white as a sheet, and was sobbing in the staff room. I went to find out what the problem was, and the student told me she had been clearing out the sink area of the bathroom. I glanced up and saw the deceased patient reflected in the mirror, looking at her over her shoulder. My student was a sensible girl not given to hysterics, but for the remainder of her placement on that ward, she would not go near that side room. For many years, I was in the US Navy based in Japan. After the tsunami hit Fukushima, we spent a few months off the coast resupplying helicopters that were ferrying supplies and searching for bodies of people who were washed out to sea. When we did find a body, we were instructed to put them in a body bag and store those bags in an area called the Starboard Castleway, a sheltered area outside of the pressurized interior, until a Japanese Coast Guard helicopter could come by to retrieve the body. For a while, after we were finished with that mission, some of my shipmates reportedly saw ghosts in the area of the ship. I didn't see any ghosts, but it was not uncommon for me to feel some unnatural chills there. My grandfather died a while back. One day, me and a bunch of my cousins were playing in the front yard, a rural area, since on weekends all the family likes to hang out together. So we're out having fun and see Lolo, the grandfather, walking toward the house. We all greet him and he smiles at us. He walks up to the porch into the house and hangs his hat by the door. We continue playing until we hear crying from the inside of the house and my uncle driving fast up the driveway. We all rush in to see what's going on and see everybody bunched up in the kitchen crying, telling us that Lolo died early in the morning and they just found out. He lives a few towns away. We looked at each other and told the grown-ups that we just saw him come into the house. They didn't believe us, and we told them that he really did not that long ago, and he even hung up his hat by the door. So everybody rushes to the door, and his hat is hanging right where we said it was. He doesn't ever go anywhere without the hat. So me and my cousins are running all over the house calling for him, while our parents are so quiet and freaking out. He actually did die earlier that morning, and my grandmother couldn't find his hat anywhere in their house. We left the hat where it was, and nobody ever touched it. My roomie best buddy is a mortician, and I'm around the funeral home a fair amount myself and know the staff pretty well. I've spent the night there before. Nothing weird happens there. I have had some experiences I can't explain, so I was a little surprised none of the staff ever had an odd experience, especially since some of them do believe in ghosts and whatnot. But they've told me if ghosts were real, why in the world would they linger at a funeral home? It's just a transition space, like an airport. No one wants to just stay in the damn airport, haunt the place you died, or the people you love, or the home you never want to leave, or however it works, if it works. Who would want to linger in a funeral home they have no attachment to, where their body was only visited after they were already gone? I used to work as a nursing assistant in assisted living communities. Usually when a resident started to need hospice care, they were transferred to a higher level of care, so I didn't see death for a long time. When I first started, my favorite resident, let's call her Marilyn, would play Scrabble with me. She was completely alert and oriented. Sometimes she liked to sit quietly with an iPod shuffle clipped onto her vest and these huge headphones. She loved music. Slowly, she started to decline. I would help her get ready for bed, and she would get upset when she forgot how to do something. The only thing that calmed her down was playing music off my phone. She liked Frank Sinatra and the Beatles. Her independent ability declined rapidly, and soon she was bedridden. I still loved listening to music. This was during COVID, and her quality of life was diminishing so quickly that we didn't transfer her out. She had an apartment at the facility with all of her belongings where she was comfortable. By the end, her dementia had progressed to the point that she couldn't remember how to swallow. Marilyn passed away with me, the head nurse, and her family at her bedside in her apartment, Unit 202. I did her post-mortem care afterward, styled her hair how she liked to wear it, and even clipped her little iPod onto her shirt. A few days after she died, a woman in 203, her neighbor, kept wandering into the lobby during the night shift, always at 3 a.m. She complained of loud music coming from Unit 202. The apartment was vacant, just full of Marilyn's belongings. She said the music was so loud that it was deafening. Whenever the night shift worker went to check, he didn't hear anything. Not really creepy, more sad. I miss Marilyn. When my cousin was 18, he was in a bad wreck, and he, his girlfriend, and her sister were all pronounced dead at the scene. The police arrived to inform my aunt, his mom, and she asked that he be sent to a specific funeral home. While they were preparing to embalm him, he rose up and asked, "Where the hell am I?" The funeral director said it was the first time he had ever had to go home and change his pants. I should add that the top of his head was open and his brain was exposed. He was sent to the hospital. The same police officer came to my aunt's to tell her he was not dead but in the hospital. They thought he'd be in a vegetative state, but a few weeks later he walked out of the hospital. My aunt said it was the worst and best day of her life. Mom told me stories when I was growing up. Her first job at a nursing school was as an RN in the ER of an old hospital in Virginia in the mid-1980s. There was the Man in the Hat and Patient 1. Most of the nurses had stories about them. The Man in the Hat would show up and stand outside of rooms after visiting hours. The patients often died soon after. Patient 1 was a woman in a very old hospital gown. She'd walk through the halls before entering random rooms. Those patients usually code. They took the man to be an omen of death and the woman to be a heads up to grab the crash cart. I'm not a worker in that field, but when my dad was in the hospital, I turned off the ringer on my phone and fell asleep. About 1 a.m. I heard the doorbell ring. I got up. No one was at the door. I walked around the house and saw absolutely nothing. I checked my phone and turned on the ringer. Almost immediately, the hospital called to tell me my dad had died and would it be okay to harvest some of his organs for transplant. Not me, but my mom's ex's story. My grandpa was the mortician for a small town in the late 1960s. The morgue was attached to the house that my mom lived in. That's just how it was, and it didn't bother her. One day her boyfriend Tom came over to the house and no one was home. They'd been dating for a while and he was comfortable going inside and waiting for my mom to come home. On the way into the house, Tom noticed that the door and windows into the morgue were open. So he checked them out, found them empty, closed everything, and went into the house. A few minutes later, he heard a loud slamming noise come from the morgue, so he ran to see what was wrong, then found the doors open, slamming noise coming from the morgue. So he ran to see what was wrong and found that the doors and windows had been thrown fully open again. He got out of there really quick. When he told my grandpa about what happened, my grandpa just calmly explained that they had picked up Mrs. that morning and the spirits were there welcoming her and visiting with her. Next time, Tom should just leave the doors and windows open. I worked in ward nursing for 10 years. The spookiest thing that happened was the doctor hiding under the bed when I cleaned my first body and scaring the shit out of me. That definitely helped me get over the fear factor of working with the dead. Bodies groan and leak when you're rolled to clean them, but that's normal. You just talk to them nicely as if they were alive. E.g., we're just going to put you in the nicest pajamas for your son to come and say goodbye. I'll give your face a clean. I'll paint your nails fresh, as I know you like them this way. On most wards, there was a haunted room that staff members would avoid. They all said it was haunted because the buzzer would mysteriously go off by itself. Funnily enough, it would always stop buzzing randomly after maintenance came to fix it.